last council meeting, we were given information upon this, and Councilman Stout asked for that to be brought forward so the council can review that resolution, the resolution that we heard about. And in your package, you have the resolution. Council, you're able to look over that. And so tonight we're here to get your thoughts on that resolution, if that's something you would like to enact, or if you have more questions on that resolution. So we'll begin the discussion on that. So Council, you have the resolution, and I believe we have a group here tonight that can answer any questions for you. So, do you have the resolution, Council? Do you want any discussion on that? Any thoughts?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Councilman Stout.
I think it's a prime example that Mr. Lemons was here tonight, that sometimes entities do overstep their legal rights and trample on individual rights. I downloaded some information and I left it home, forgot about it, but this last summer, and this may seem like a rabbit trail, but your Senate voted 46 out of 100 to adopt a UN resolution on gun control, which would have, for all intents and purposes, would have confiscated weapons in this country, not only for military weapons, but personal weapons, and it would have allowed UN troops to come on the soil to implement it. Now, I've talked to a couple of individuals who have legal backgrounds, and they said, you can't, the Constitution guarantees us certain rights. And while I believe that to be true, it also becomes apparent that sometimes governments overstep those rights. Also, before I came to this meeting tonight, it occurred to me that during World War II, there were a number of instances where certain groups, Japanese, Italian Americans, Germans, were rounded up in this country because of I'm sure that came into the War Powers Act, but there were, according to my readings, there were a number of instances where even these individuals' constitutional rights were abridged because they were not Germans, Japanese, or Italians. They were Americans who were born natural citizens here, and they were rounded up as well as the rest. My point is that it seems abundantly clear that your government, my government, under certain circumstances, can do whatever they please. And while this resolution may only be our personal protest against these two resolutions, I can't. 1021, 1022. At least we should. I think the least we can do is make our voice heard and show our protest. And if we get enough cities doing this, then maybe something will be done. But if we say nothing, we can expect nothing. And so I'm in favor of passing this resolution.
Okay. So, Council, any further comments?
Well stated.
Mayor,
Councilman Henderson.
I agree with Councilman Stout. I think that we should pass this.
Mayor,
Councilman Fry.
I certainly applaud people's effort in this, and it's a great showing of freedom of speech in this country to be here tonight. But my view is a little different. This seems to me to be a political view held by a group of people, or a political view held by a certain group of people. And the City Council is a nonpartisan entity by design and should not be involved in partisan politics. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? So I know that actually that detainee, my daughter travels a lot. She's like a 29-year-old, beautiful blonde-haired gal, and they detains her all the time at the check station for no reason. Imagine that. I don't think she looks like a terrorist with that beautiful blonde hair.
And Mayor, if I can address the council.
You may say your name and address, please.
My name is Jason Casella. With, in response to Councilman Frey's concern. Councilman Fry, yeah, sorry about that. This is not a partisan issue by any means. This is a human rights issue, okay? The human right that we were all born here free, and we have certain inalienable rights that cannot be taken away by anybody, let alone the government. So by what you just said, I do not agree with, and I'll tell you that everybody here that came out tonight doesn't agree with either. So Maybe you want to talk more about that to them, not to me.
I respect the difference in opinion. Thank you.
Mayor,
Councilman Williams.
Jason,
Yeah.
you seem to be the expert on this, and I'm gonna ask you this. I mean, the comment's been made is partisan politics. Excuse me, but did not the Congress pass this? I mean, let's take the partisanship, whether it was a partisan vote or not. It was voted on and passed against the Constitution and everything else.
Exactly.
So throw the partisan portion out,
Yeah.
correct?
Exactly, because it was passed by Republicans and Democrats.
Correct.
So it is nonpartisan.
Councilman Stout.
This may sound like a arbitrary, but speaking of partisan politics, the legislation that went before to pass the UN Small Arms Treaty was partisan politics. Of the 46 people that voted for it, they were all Democrat. And they were more than willing to sell your rights down the river. So if we're talking about partisan politics, especially in the last 5 years, there's been a great deal of it. But that being said, this is not about politics. This is about individual rights. This is about our belief that the Constitution should not be trumped by any law, anybody, any party.
Very well. Okay. So council, with that, you have that resolution before you, and see what our counselor has to say.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, I don't come down on either side of this issue, but as your legal counsel, I do have some concerns about the wording of this resolution, as it seems to make some legal assumptions and legal conclusions that, frankly, I haven't had an opportunity to research or be able to advise you on. This obviously is a complex constitutional law issue. And like I said, I'm not coming down on either side of it, but my only advice would be that you should make this resolution only if you feel comfortable that what is stated in this resolution, you understand both sides of the issue, you understand the facts and the circumstances surrounding the law that was passed, and I think you're ready to put the city of Emmett up there as basically a supporter of this particular representative from PANDA. So with that, my best advice to you is make sure you feel 100% comfortable passing this resolution as drafted.
Mayor?
Councilman Williams.
And Jake, thank you, first of all. And I would agree to that to an extent. I feel that I would like you to look at it, further review, and provide an opinion as well. At the same time, maybe it would be nice to have something from one of the congressional representatives, if you will, who were part of all the discussions when all this took place, or one of their staff members who are local, provide a little bit of the background. And then before we pass, if we were to pass this as a resolution, I'd rather have the clerk prepare it so it comes back to us in more, I mean, it says resolution restoring constitutional governance, but it's not in our resolution form. I'd rather have it in our format.
Your Honor,
Councilman Stout.
when I brought this forward, Crystal, I took this from Justin and edited, or Jason, I edited him in here. I was under the assumption that this was a perfectly legal document, but that it was to be, and I told Crystal that I thought Jake would review this document and give us his input on this before it, when it came before the council. So I was under the presumption that it had already been done. But that being said,
As was I.
I still feel that this is a worthy document and that it should be at least reviewed by the council here and then brought back before the council.
Sir.
But as far as putting ourselves out in the forefront, I don't have an issue with that.
So I think what, and I did talk to the counselor today, because any legal issue with a municipality, of course, he always wanted to get it checked out, and he's a contract lawyer by trade, so this is right up his alley, he can research it. And I did call him today to ask him to make sure to go over this, which flagged him to look at this, and I would agree, we really need to have our legal counsel look over it and put it in our own format. We might need to, if he finds something that might need some wording that might need to be changed, but still give the same outcome. So I think you can see that this council does support the resolution, but I think what we're probably going to need to have the council go through and review this and check it and get it in our format and we'll bring it back.
Okay. Is there a reason why that wasn't done before? Because
Well,
it was submitted a couple weeks ago.
It was about a week or so, and when we brought it forward, we wanted to take a look at it. It wasn't that we were going to pass it. Your resolution was for the council to look at tonight and decide whether they are something they wanted to act on. And as you can see tonight, it is something that they want to act on. And so now we'll need to take it and get it in our format and make sure it's reviewed so that we don't have any legal problems with it,
Okay.
and then bring it back.
And in regard to Emmett stepping out in the limelight, so to speak, this resolution is being passed all over the country. There's over 15 states that have passed something in different cities and counties in the states, and I sent everybody here an email about that.
You did,
So with regard to that statement, I believe that addresses that.
certainly. And like I say, the councils in the past, where we've done things without following the advice of the counselor, our city attorney, that's why we have them here, to keep us in check, to make sure that we don't do anything that might put the city at stake. And that's why we have him. So
Yeah.
if he flags that, saying he really needs to take a look at this to make sure that the wording is correct and it doesn't put us in any type of dire straits, we can still support the movement, which I think you see we do.
Sure.
But when we get to the legal parts, we need to make sure that we do it correctly.
Yeah. And as far as that goes, this is the same resolution that's being passed. So it's exactly the same. All we need to do is take out Emmett, or take out the other cities and put in Emmett. So other than that, there's no changes to that legislation that's already been passed in other cities.
Certainly.
So just so you know.
And did you email it to our counselor? Do you have those emails necessary so he can research those also, maybe?
No, I'm sorry, Mayor. The first I saw of it was Thursday when the packet went out for the whole council. So.
Mayor? Councilman Williams?
You're not going to appreciate this, but it's best case scenario because we're not meeting in 2 weeks. We're meeting next week due to the holiday, and the clerk has to prepare packets, prepare an agenda, and kick those out immediately. So I'd actually request, and I'm going to make a motion that this be placed on the January 14th agenda as an unfinished business item to bring it back. That would give Jake ample time to review. I don't think, being that it's Tuesday night already, we have to turn around and get a packet out for next week again. It's not fair to Jake, and would be fair to us to look at anything, because by the time Jake gets it out to us, we're not going to have time. So I'd request we move that first meeting in January.
Mayor, we have a hand there. I'd like to come up and say something, if that'd be okay.
Come up to the mic. Just remember that when you're dealing with a municipality here, and government wheels take time, and we have to do things in an order.
Mayor,
Councilman Williams?
I have a motion. I have a motion on the table.
For the January
And before we take any more
Yes,
input,
yes.
I'd rather either let it die for lack of second, or let's have a second.
Second.
We'll move from there. Thank you.
Second, sorry. I got caught up in it.
About two. Okay, discussion? Okay, we'll say,
Mayor,
Councilman
I'm going to
Fry.
vote for it because I'd like to see it brought back again in a different form. Thank you.
Oh, good.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
So there, we have an
Sorry about that.
So we want
All
to
right.
comment.
Okay, I feel very passionate about this. Sorry, I'm not a public speaker. I wrote it down so that I could just read it. Thank you for taking the time to hear me speak tonight. I'm very concerned about the NDAA, and I would be very concerned if you weren't. The NDAA goes against all that is American. I'm not a politician, and this is not my job. I am a mom, and my job as a mom is to protect my son and keep his rights. I believe the NDAA keeps people from standing up for what they believe in and exercising their First Amendment right to free speech. The fact that anyone can be detained for anything at any time indefinitely leaves too many doors open. If I am accused of something, I would like to be able to defend myself and prove my innocence. When you think of the word terrorist, what do you picture? Well, the government pictures you. If you use cash, if you have more than 8 days worth of food, which is probably a lot of people in here, the government pictures you. According to their definition of terrorist, everyone in this room is a terrorist. I'm sure you're thinking, but I'm not a terrorist. Now, what if you didn't have the right to prove it? Keep in mind, this is already the law. This is not something the government is thinking of enforcing. They stole your rights overnight without consideration of how being detained for life could affect your life and your family. Under the NDAA, the whole U.S. is declared a battlefield. This is not where I want to be, and definitely do not want my son to grow up this way. If I don't take the risk of standing up in front of you tonight, he may not have the right to stand up later. We always want to give our kids. what we didn't give them, or what we didn't have. But I want to give him what I did have, the right to speak my mind, because let's face it, some of us just cannot stay silent. I didn't grow up in Emmett, but this is now my home, and I want to do my best to protect the people here, as I'm sure you do as well. Neighbors help neighbors here, and that's the best part about living here. I lived other places and there is no other place like Idaho. Please support legislation to block the NDAA in Emmett and keep Idaho, Idaho. Thank you.
We'll take one more. I see one more hand, but I'll let you speak. We'll take one more here. I think you can tell the council is in favor and that possibility. I need your name and your...
Mayor, council members, my name is Tom Munz. I actually ran as a representative in your district when you were District 11 a couple of years ago. I just wanted to speak tonight to tell you thank you for your thoughts, you guys, and for listening, to be able to allow us to be able to explain the detriment of the abuse of government. But I wanted to, the very heartfelt speech right there, I don't need to go into because I feel very much the same way. I've got 4 kids at home. But part of being a representative is adequately representing the people that elect you. And part of what that means is it's a proper understanding of the oath that you took when you took office. Now, I'm not pointing this at any of you. I'm saying this on myself when I became a representative. It's a firm knowledge of the Constitution, knowing that the Constitution was actually written by and for the people to limit government. So the very idea that we would need a whole lot of jumping through hoops to be able to make sure that the wording is right and whether we're actually going to feel like we're going to jump into it or not is really something that needs to be considered, because the Constitution was something that was written, like I said, by the people. They were average people, and they actually knew their rights. Alexis de Tocqueville actually said that it was quite a phenomenon for anybody that didn't even know anything about the Constitution. So the idea that we would need legal counsel, with all due respect to City Attorney Sweeten, is that we all should know the basics of the Constitution, the limitations on government and the blatant overreaches that they have. It's no secret that we have a federal government that is written, we have a president that's written 900 executive orders. We've got a Supreme Court. They're violating the jurisdictional boundaries of the state, the county, and everything to be able to go in force of where we're all enclosed under the federal government. We actually believe now that the city councils and stuff across the country and the state legislature, from my involvement in there, believe that Article 6, Section 2 says that any law that the legislature or the judicial branch or the executive branch covers is the supreme law of the land. And nothing could be more ridiculous, because all the legislative power is in Article 1 through the legislature. No other branch of government has the authority to be able to do that. And furthermore, part of my understanding is that most attorneys through the Bar Association and the rest of that stuff and through law school don't even teach constitutional law. At least not that way. So what I want you guys to do is just thank you for allowing me to go on, kind of long-winded sometimes, is just to be able to really think about it as if you were a child. Or if you were a parent with children, where your single most important thing to do was to preserve the rights for your child. And what would you do? Would you allow a government 3,000 miles away to be able to characterize you as an enemy, to be able to buy billions of rounds of bullets, to be able to characterize you as right-wing extremists just because you stand for freedom? The fact that people stand on principle is enough to be a terrorist in this country. And it's really sad that we've actually come to a point in time where that's actually true. So it puts people like me and some of the rest of these people that really love liberty, that spend every waking moment that we have reading constitutional law and history, to be able to appeal to you guys, just to be able to get in here. So I appreciate you guys listening and all that, and I appreciate some of the answers and stuff that you guys have had, and I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is everybody here tonight for that resolution?
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you guys for coming out here. It's awesome, and I really wish that people would just come like this every time we have a city council meeting, just to see what goes on, but no one shows up.
You may
It's good to see, it's good to see.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry. Roberta.
they're all here.
And the Newberries, I'm sorry, we have 3 people that are there every time. But you 3 understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Yes, unless there's a hot button issue, people don't show up.
I showed up, but I didn't know that was the issue tonight.
You were wondering what award was gonna go out, right?
Okay, so we'll have that back, and our counselor will give us advice on that, and like they didn't see that until Thursday when the packets go out. There's somebody that works in government, you know, it takes, the wheels are turning, but we'll get there, so. Thank you for coming out, and again, thank you for bringing that forward to us. And as past meet, I know that I met Jason at an event on education a while back. There he is. All right.
And I'll keep coming back.
Good deal.
Good.
One day, somebody's going to have to say enough.